there was a time I began to think that this quality that Peter had of making these extraordinary kind of connections, which just exploded in front of you, was obviously a great gift, but it was almost an affliction. It was almost that you felt, oh, well, at least, you know, my mind can take a rest from that. I mean, I can and do turn it off when I go home, and you felt that somehow Peter never did and never could, because his mind was always finding those kind of connections.
I come in, I get into bed, you see, feeling quite sleepy. I could feel the lids of my eyes beginning to droop, you see, a bit of the droop in the eyes. I was just about to drop off when suddenly, tap, tap, tap at the bloody window pane. I looked out, you know it was bloody Greta Garbo. Bloody Greta Garbo.
And it was an extraordinary friendship those two men had. It was impossible to get a word in, really, because they were constant, not just on camera, but all the time improvising. So one felt sometimes that Peter, not so much Dudley, but Peter was not going to stop being funny for a minute in case you got a little bit too close to him.
Stark naked, save for a shorty nightie. She was hanging onto the windowsill. And I could see her knuckles all white. She was saying, Peter, Peter, once neuen in the you know how these bloody Swedes go on.
I remember watching it religiously and thinking it was the funniest, cleverest, most pointed material I'd seen. Perhaps I had also seen them in a film called The Wrong Box, and thought they were so gifted that I simply picked up the telephone and tracked them down and said, would they meet with me? Would they like to make a movie?
Filming on location, those two satirical stalwarts, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, in a new 20th Century Fox production directed by Stanley Donen called Bedazzled. Dudley does our interview.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you from the Gardening Centre, Zion House, Brentford, Middlesex, England. I should like to ask this gentleman a question or so. First of all, who are you?
My name is George Spigot.
George Spigot. What do you do?
I'm the devil, and I tempt people, mainly.
The character of the devil for Peter was, of course, heaven sent, because he could complain about all the things that he wanted to speak about.
I'll cover the world in tasty freeze and wimpy burgers. I'll fill it full of concrete runways, motorways, aircraft, television and automobiles, advertising, plastic flowers and frozen food, supersonic bangs.
I think the reason Bedazzled is so good is he plays a very accentuated version of himself.
The magic words, LBJ.
Here, my ice lolly is melted. You really must be the devil.
Incarnate. How do you do?
He's trying to get Dudley Moore's soul and buy it up, but in a very 60s devil.
That's not your name, is it? George Spigot?
Come on in. It's one of my many earthly pseudoplumes or nom-de-lumes.
Hold on now, Jeff. I thought you were called Lucifer.
I know, the bringer of the light it used to be. Sounds a bit puffy to me.
Peter in Bedazzled is terribly surprising because he's so good-looking, you know, elegant, thin.
I don't care.
He was immensely attractive and indeed very beautiful. He had a very beautiful face, and his eyes, I mean, he was just the most beautiful thing.
I don't want you. I don't love you. Leave me alone.
Most of the people who worked with him had gigantic crushes on Peter Cook. And it was not difficult to see why. He was an immensely attractive figure. He
really actually wanted to be, and thought he could be, light comedy leading man in movies and the movie star, for which he certainly had the looks.
Yes.
But not the appropriate talent.
Rimmer, sir, coordination.
He wasn't really an actor, right? Like, Peter was doing the lines and sort of making the moves, but he was always just slightly removed from it, which is kind of wonderful. It's like a Brechtian technique all of its own. Sort of just enough in it to kind of get through the sort of plot and the narrative and to say the lines, but just slightly kind of just a little bit further away from it than that.
Could you tell me why you asked me on the program?
To find out your real motives in publishing the poem.
And to talk about sex.
Which is a very unusual technique to watch on film. In fact, it's not a film acting technique at all. I mean, it's, you could almost say it's like supposedly sort of not very good acting.
He was a terrible actor.
Oh, do let's try not to be frivolous.
Well, sex may be frivolous to you, Mr. Nis, but it's not to me and the vast majority of people in this country.
Yes, but I mean, do we really want to know how many times a week and how satisfactory the results?
Yes, I do.
I think he was strange. A strange actor. He was very awkward with other people's lines, and you know, he was fine with his own, which he found highly amusing and highly sort of beautifully formed and stuff. But with other people's stuff, he couldn't deliver it at all.
Now, darling, when's the super secret surprise honeymoon?
Have you ever heard of a little place called Dudley Moor?
By the beginning of the 70s, the first cracks were beginning to show in Cook's relationships, both professional and private, with the breakup of his first marriage after he met former debutante Judy Huxtable. The Cook-Moore partnership was also put under serious strain on the Australian tour of their 1972 stage show, Behind the Fridge.
In Australia, in Sydney, I think he was drunk for the first week. I mean, he was drunk for a whole week, and he said, "What's the matter?"
There's no need to be shy, lad. Get it off your chest. Tell me, what's bothering you?
Well, there's nothing bothering me, sir.
Oh, laddie. I'm old enough to be your father. You can tell me what's bothering you. What's bothering you, eh? You're drunk!
Certainly, at that stage, I thought, I can't stay on stage with this guy for 2 hours.
Have a glass of sherry?
Oh, I wouldn't say no, thank you, sir.
Well, why should you say no? A glass of sherry never did anybody any harm.
I mean, he got a little pie-eyed during the New York run now and again. I remember people having to break down the door of his apartment and stuff, and dragging him out, and "I'm fine." He used to wave to me from the window. Fine. Used to be really out of it. Oh, it was painful. It was painful. I certainly didn't like working with him in this way. No. I mean, he it seems changed a great deal from what he had been, and became much slower. You know.
I tend to drink too much.
Why?
In fact, why? I don't know. I think it's a symptom of boredom, really. My mind can drift off, and Dudley won't actually say anything to me.
So why do you do it? Why do you, in fact, not concentrate for 2 performances? Why do you make me get into this state?
I don't make you get into
yes,
that state.
You do. I think you're just playing at it.
I'm not at all. It's just I'm aware afterwards that at a certain moment my mind has wandered off onto something else.
Drink, drink, let the toast start.